There was a moment, long before you were born, when a young man sat at the bottom of a pit. The earth was dry and cracked around him. The air smelled of dust and old stone. His brothers had stripped him of the coat his father gave him, the one that marked him as set apart, and they had thrown him into that pit, without water, without explanation, without even the courtesy of looking back as they walked away to eat their meal. His name was Joseph, and in that moment, from the outside, it looked like everything was over. It looked like the dream had died in the dirt. It looked like heaven had gone silent. But heaven had not gone silent. Heaven was simply working in a register that human eyes could not yet read. The pit was not the end of Joseph's story. The pit was the first line of it. And now, right now, in this exact moment, that same heaven is leaning toward you. This is not a coincidence that you are here. This is not the algorithm. This is not background noise filling your evening. Something directed you here, to this message, on this specific day, and if you will stay with these words long enough, you will understand why. Because what happened to Joseph, that stripping away, that silence, that season of being unseen and unheard, is not just ancient history. It is the blueprint. And you, beloved and chosen one, have been living inside that blueprint, perhaps for longer than you have been willing to admit. You were warned this day would come, not in words you could hear with your ears, but in the deep interior, knowing that has been growing inside you for months, maybe for years. A quiet certainty that something is shifting, a pull toward a life that is larger than the one currently surrounding you. A sense that you were made for something that has not yet fully arrived, and that the waiting has gone on long enough that you have started to wonder if you imagined the whole thing. You did not imagine it. Let me speak plainly to you now, because you deserve plainness more than you deserve poetry. There are specific signs that mark a person who is standing at the edge of their divine moment, and I want to name them for you one by one, because it is possible that no one has ever named them for you before. The first sign is this: your dreams have become sharper and stranger at the same time. Not nightmares, not random noise, but dreams with a quality of realness that lingers into the afternoon. Dreams where you are standing in places you have never been but somehow recognize. Dreams that leave you sitting on the edge of your bed in the early morning, not afraid, but deeply, quietly awake. That is not your imagination working overtime. That is your spirit receiving transmission. The second sign is this: you have felt a frustration lately that you cannot fully explain to anyone around you. Not anger, not depression, though it can borrow the clothing of both. It is a specific kind of restlessness that comes from carrying a call that has not yet found its full expression. It is the feeling of a river pressing against a dam. The water is not broken. The water is simply ready to move. The third sign is this: certain people and certain environments that used to feel comfortable have begun to feel heavy. Not because those people are bad or those places are wrong, but because you are outgrowing them the way a tree outgrows the container it was started in. The roots need more room. And some part of you has known this for a while, even if saying it out loud has felt like betrayal. The fourth sign is this: there is a message, a word, a theme, an idea that keeps appearing in your life from different directions. You hear it in a conversation. You see it in something you read. You notice it in a dream. You catch it in a moment of silence. The repetition is not coincidence. Heaven repeats itself when it is trying to get through to someone who has been taught to doubt their own reception. The fifth sign is this: you are here, right now, listening, and something in you new to come. Not the logical part of you that manages your calendar and your obligations. The deeper part, the part that has never stopped believing, even when the believing felt embarrassing. even when it felt naive, even when the evidence around you seemed to argue against everything you were holding on to. God's chosen one, you carry a frequency that the world around you cannot always name, but it can feel. Children trust you quickly. Strangers say things to you they have never said to anyone else. Animals calm down near you. People leave conversations with you feeling lighter than when they arrived. This is not personality. This is purpose moving through a vessel that has been shaped over years of pressure and patience and private pain. You are an earth angel in the truest sense of that phrase. Not a fantasy, not a metaphor, but a person who was placed here to carry light into rooms that have forgotten what light feels like. And the preparation for that kind of assignment is never comfortable. The preparation for that kind of assignment looks a lot like the bottom of a pit. But the pit has a season, and that season is closing. Heaven has not been absent. Heaven has been assembling. Everything that felt like delay, every door that closed, every season that stretched longer than you thought you could endure, has been part of a construction project that is now nearing completion. And this message right now is one of the final signals before the shift. Heaven did not say soon. Heaven said now. If you stayed with part one long enough to feel something move inside your chest, then what I am about to say in this part is going to land even deeper. Because part one was about recognition. This part is about something more intimate than recognition. This part is about being truly seen. Not seen the way people see you when you walk into a room and perform the version of yourself that keeps everything manageable. Seen the way you are when it is late and the house is quiet and you are alone with the truest version of what you are carrying. There is a particular kind of ache that belongs to the chosen one in the season of waiting. And the reason it is so difficult to carry is not because the ache is unbearable. It is because it is almost impossible to explain. You have tried, perhaps, to put it into words for someone you trusted, and the words came out wrong, or they came out right but landed in the wrong ears, and you walked away from that conversation feeling more alone than before you opened your mouth. So you stopped trying to explain. You started carrying it quietly, and quiet carrying over a long period of time becomes a particular kind of weight that settles into the bones. I want to name what you are feeling today, not in general terms, in specific ones. The first thing you are feeling is a wave of sadness about the past that arrives without warning. It does not always have a clear trigger. You could be doing something completely ordinary, washing a dish, driving a familiar road, hearing a particular song from a year that mattered, and the sadness arrives like a tide that does not ask permission. And the sadness is not simply grief over what was lost. It is something more layered than that. It is grief over who you were becoming before. Something interrupted the becoming. It is grief over a version of your life that you can still see clearly enough to miss, even though you have never actually lived it. That kind of sadness is not weakness. That kind of sadness is vision. You are grieving something real. The life you were meant to be living has been pressing against the door of your present reality, and the distance between where you are and where you know you belong is what produces that ache. The second thing you are feeling is that familiar places and familiar people have begun to feel strangely heavy. The coffee shop you used to love, the routine that once felt like comfort, the friendships that are still technically intact, but have started to feel like clothing that no longer fits the body you are growing into. You sit in rooms where you used to feel at home and now feel like a visitor. You have conversations you have had 100 times before and feel anew and uncomfortable. Distance from them. You are not being ungrateful. You are not being disloyal. You are being repositioned. When heaven is preparing to move you forward, it first makes the place you are standing feel less like home, because a person who is completely comfortable does not move. The discomfort is not punishment. The discomfort is direction. The third thing is the dream, or a version of it that keeps returning. A door that is closed but not locked. A corridor that you can see the end of but never quite reach in the dream. A room that you know is full of something good but the entrance keeps shifting. These are not random images produced by a restless mind. These are the language of a spirit that is trying to communicate something to you in the only hours when the noise of the day goes quiet enough for the message to come through. The recurring image of an unopened door is not a symbol of being blocked. It is a symbol of standing at the threshold. The door in your dream is not locked. It is waiting for you to stop dreaming about it and start walking toward it with your eyes open. The fourth thing you are feeling is that the same message keeps finding you from different directions. A stranger says something that sounds like the thing your mother said 3 weeks ago. A book falls open to a page that answers the question you did not say out loud. A video appears that speaks the exact language of the thing you have been turning over in your mind for months. This is not the universe playing tricks on you. This is convergence. When heaven wants to make sure you receive a message, it sends it through multiple channels at once, because heaven knows that a person who has been disappointed enough times needs more than one confirmation before they are willing to believe again. And now I want to speak to something that almost never gets spoken about directly in content like this, because most people find it easier to talk about destiny than to talk about the pain that comes before it. You are not sleeping well, not because your body is broken, but because something in you will not let you fully rest when you are this close to a shift. There is a part of you that is standing watch even when you lie down, because the waiting has trained you to stay alert for signs. You wake at strange hours, often between 2 and 4 in the morning, and the thoughts that meet you in those hours are not always kind. They are the thoughts that daylight keeps at bay, the thoughts that ask whether any of this is real, whether you are simply a person who has been waiting for something that was never going to come, whether the life you have been holding in your imagination is just a beautiful fiction you invented to survive a reality that felt too small. Those thoughts are liars, but they are very convincing liars. And the reason they are convincing is that they use evidence. They point to years. They point to attempts that did not produce the results you needed. They point to prayers that seemed to go unanswered, to doors that opened halfway and then closed, to seasons that promised change and then quietly handed you more of the same. I am not going to tell you to ignore that evidence. I am going to tell you to reinterpret it. Because here is the thing about waiting that almost no one tells you. There are two entirely different kinds of being unseen, and they look identical from the outside, but they are not the same thing at all. The first kind is being overlooked. Overlooked means passed over because something about you did not register as valuable. Overlooked means falling through the cracks of a system that was not built with you in mind. Overlooked means your moment came and went, and nobody noticed. That is not what is happening to you. The second kind is being positioned. Positioned means placed with intention in a location that does not yet make sense from where you are standing, but that will make complete sense the moment the larger picture becomes visible. Positioned means held back from a version of the life that would have cost you more than you could afford in order to be prepared for a version of the life that requires everything you have been becoming. Positioned means protected, not punished. Protected. The years you have spent in what felt like the background were not wasted years. They were years in which something was being built inside you that cannot be rushed and cannot be manufactured and cannot be acquired through ambition alone. Patience that has been tested becomes unshakable. Compassion that has been forged through personal pain becomes genuine. Faith that has survived its own doubts becomes a foundation that nothing can remove. You were not overlooked, you were positioned, and the positioning is almost complete. I want you to sit with something for a moment before I continue. I want you to think about the version of yourself from 3 years ago, from 5 years ago, from the beginning of the hardest season you have walked through. Think about what that version of you was carrying. Think about what that version of you did not yet know how to hold. Think about the situations that would have destroyed that earlier version of you that you are now able to navigate with something approaching steadiness. The growth is real. The preparation is real. You are not the same person who walked into this season, and the person you have become is exactly the person who is needed for what is coming next. This is the moment I want to invite you into something. If any of this has reached into a place inside you that you have kept quiet for a long time, if any of these words have named something that you have been carrying without language, I want you to type one word in the comment below. Just one word. Type the word receive. Not as performance, not to prove anything to anyone watching, but as an act of declaration for yourself. A way of saying out loud, even in written form, that you are open, that you are willing, that you are no longer going to hold your arms crossed against what is coming toward you. Type receive if this is speaking to the part of you that has been waiting the longest. And if this message has been a place of rest for you today, if it has given you language for something you have been living without language for, I want to gently ask you to consider supporting this work with a gift of any size. Not because this message comes with a price. It does not. But because creating content that goes this deep, that spends this much time inside the interior life of people who are often invisible to the world around them, that work takes time and intention and resources. When you give, even a small amount, you are not just supporting a channel. You are sending this message further. You are making it possible for another chosen one, sitting alone in a quiet room somewhere, to hear their name called for the first time in a long time. You can find the giving link in the description below. Give what you can. Give what feels right. And know that even the act of giving from a place of lack is itself a declaration that you believe more is coming. Because it is. The weight you have been carrying was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to be transitional. It was meant to move you from one version of your life to the next. And right now, the transition is underway. What felt like abandonment was actually assignment. What felt like delay was actually design. What felt like being forgotten was actually being formed. And the formation, beloved one, is reaching its completion in this very season that you are standing in today. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not someone who almost made it. You are someone who is standing at the exact coordinates where your preparation meets your purpose. And something is about to be released in your life that could only be released to someone who has been through exactly what you have been through, and who came out the other side still believing, still here, still open enough to listen to a message like this one on a day like today. Stay with me now, because what I am about to give you in this part is not theory. It is not inspiration wrapped in language that sounds good, but leaves you with nothing to hold on to when the message ends and the ordinary world comes rushing back in. What I am about to give you is something practical, something you can carry out of this moment and into the next hour of your actual life. Because chosen ones do not only need to be seen and named, they need to be equipped. and equipping is what this part is for. Before I give you the practice, I want to say something about the nature of tools in a season like this one. There is a particular kind of resistance that shows up in people who have been waiting a long time. It is a resistance to hope that disguises itself as wisdom. It sounds like this inside your head. You have tried things before. You have done the practices, said the prayers, made the declarations, taken the steps, and the result was not what you were promised it would be. So now when someone offers you a tool, something in you wants to hold back. Not because you do not want change. You want change more than almost anything, but because hoping and then not receiving has a cost, and after you have paid that cost enough times, the self-protective part of you starts to intercept hope before it can take root and become something that could hurt you again if it does not work out. I understand that resistance. I am not going to argue with it or try to talk you out of it. I am simply going to ask you to set it aside for the next few minutes. Not permanently, not blindly, just long enough to receive what is being offered here. Because this tool is not asking you to believe anything first. It is asking you to do something first and let the believing follow the doing. That is a different kind of invitation, and it is one that even the most guarded part of you can accept. The practice I am giving you today has a name. I call it the 5-minute return. It is called a return because that is exactly what it is. A return to yourself. A return to the frequency you were carrying before the world told you to quiet it down. A return to the interior space where heaven has always been able to reach you, even when you were too distracted, or too exhausted, or too discouraged to notice. This practice has 3 steps. Each step is simple. None of them require any special skill or prior experience. You do not need to be someone who meditates. You do not need to be someone who has a prayer life that feels clean and consistent. You do not need to be someone who has it together. In fact, this practice works best on the people who feel the most undone, because the undone ones are the ones with the least in the way. Step 1 is this. I want you to remember something that did not happen, not something you lost, not something that was taken from you, something that did not happen. And the fact that it did not happen protected you in a way you may not have fully recognized at the time. Think back across the last 2 to 3 years of your life. Think about a door that closed on you, a relationship that ended, a job that did not come through, a plan that fell apart at the exact moment you needed it to hold together. And instead of going to the grief of that closed door, which is the place your mind naturally travels when you think about it, I want you to go somewhere different. I want you to go to the question of what would have happened if that door had stayed open. Because some of the things that felt like rejection were actually redirection. Some of the things that felt like failure were actually protection operating in disguise. Some of the people who left your life were not supposed to be in the room where you are going. Some of the plans that collapsed would have carried you to a destination that was not yours to arrive at. And when you are able to sit quietly with one specific thing that did not happen and find genuine gratitude for the fact that it did not happen, something shifts in the interior of you. A small but real loosening occurs. A tiny amount of the grip that fear and disappointment have had on your future begins to release. And that release is not small. That release is the beginning of the realignment. So step 1 is gratitude for the closed door. Not performed gratitude, not forced positivity. Real specific gratitude for one real specific thing that did not happen, and the quiet understanding that its not happening was not an accident. Take your time with step 1. Do not rush past it to get to step 2. The tendency in a culture that values speed is to move quickly through any moment that requires stillness. But the power in step is not in the idea of it. The power is in the actual sitting with it. Give yourself at least 60 seconds with the specific memory. Let the gratitude be real before you move forward. If it takes 3 minutes, let it take 3 minutes. The rest of the practice will wait. Step 2 is a statement, a spoken declaration that you will make out loud, or if your environment does not allow for speaking out loud, that you will form clearly and deliberately in your mind. The statement is connected to a concept of time that I want to briefly introduce here because the concept matters for understanding why the statement works. Most of us live our lives inside one understanding of time. Time as a sequence of moments moving in one direction, from past through present toward future, at a fixed and unchangeable pace. Yesterday happened. Today is happening. Tomorrow will happen. And if today does not look the way we need it to look, then we must wait for tomorrow to bring something different. This is the ordinary understanding of time. And it is not wrong. But it is incomplete. There is another quality of time, a different dimension of it. Not clock time, not calendar time, but what the ancient Greeks called kairos, appointed time. Right moment. The moment that carries within it the exact conditions needed for a specific thing to occur. Kairos does not move on a clock. Kairos arrives when everything required for its arrival has been assembled. And here is what matters for you right now. You cannot manufacture Kairos by working harder or waiting longer or being more deserving, but you can position yourself to receive it. And one of the ways you position yourself is by declaring your readiness to the present moment, not to the future moment. Not when things change now, in the current moment, as it actually is. So the statement for step 2 is this. Say it out loud if you can, clearly and without rushing. Say these words. I am not waiting for my life to begin. My life is already in motion, and I am already inside the appointed time. Say it again if the first time felt mechanical. Say it until it moves from language into something that your body can feel. Because the body keeps a record of every declaration you have ever made, and this declaration is countering years of a different inner narrative. It may take a few repetitions before it lands in the deep place where it needs to land. That is not failure. That is the normal process of a truth overriding a lie that has had more time to take root. Step 2 is the declaration. And like step 1, do not rush past it. Let the words do their work. Step 3 is 7 minutes of silence. I know that for some of you, silence is not easy. The mind does not go quiet simply because you have asked it to. Thoughts arrive. Worries arrive. The mental list of everything you need to handle arrives. The inner critic arrives. And the temptation is to see all of this arriving as evidence that you are doing the practice wrong, that silence does not work for you, that you are somehow too busy inside your own head to receive what the silence is supposed to carry. But here is what I want you to understand about the 7 minutes of silence in this practice. The goal is not a completely empty mind. The goal is a directed one. You are not trying to stop thoughts from arriving. You are simply choosing not to follow them. When a thought arrives during the 7 minutes, you notice it, you acknowledge it without judgment, and you return your attention to your breathing. In through the nose for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Out through the mouth for 4 counts. And if a thought pulls you away from that rhythm, as thoughts will, you simply return to the rhythm again, without criticism, without frustration. Just return. The reason 7 minutes matters, and not 5 minutes or 10 minutes, has to do with what research into the brain's rhythmic activity has discovered about the window of time required for the mind to begin a genuine shift in its dominant operating frequency. 7 minutes is not an arbitrary number. It is the threshold. It is the minimum amount of time that allows the brain to begin moving from the high-frequency stress state that most of us live in during our waking hours into a deeper, more receptive state. A state in which the interior voice becomes clearer. A state in which the answers to questions you have been carrying rise to the surface more easily. A state in which the things you have been trying to force with effort begin to move with something more like grace. I am going to say more about this brain frequency discovery in the next part of this message, because it connects to something that I believe is going to be genuinely significant for many of you who are listening. But for now, what I want you to take from step 3 is simply this: 7 minutes every day, not as a ritual you perform to earn something, not as a transaction between you and heaven, but as a daily act of returning to the frequency you were created to carry. A daily act of clearing the noise long enough for the signal to come through. The 5-minute return is not complicated. It was never meant to be complicated. Step 1. Gratitude for the closed door. Step 2. The declaration of appointed time. Step 3. 7 minutes of silence with breath as the anchor. You can do this in the morning before the day takes over. You can do this in your car before you walk into a building. You can do this at the end of the day when the noise finally quiets down. You can do this right now after this message ends, in the chair or on the floor, or on the edge of the bed where you are sitting. The chosen ones who are entering their next season are not the ones who simply received the message and felt the warmth of it, and then returned to their ordinary lives unchanged. The chosen ones who are entering their next season are the ones who took the warmth of the message and turned it into a daily act of alignment. The ones who made a small, consistent, daily choice to return to themselves, to return to the frequency, to return to the place inside them where heaven has always been able to reach them. That daily act of return is what this practice is for, and it is simpler than anything you have tried before, which means the only thing standing between you and beginning it is the decision to begin. Make the decision today, not tomorrow. Today. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. And in the next part of this message, I am going to show you exactly what is happening in your brain during those 7 minutes of silence, and why the science of it is as extraordinary as the spiritual reality of it. What happens in those 7 minutes of silence is not a mystery. It is measurable. It is documented. It is the kind of thing that happens at a level so deep inside the architecture of your brain that most people spend their entire lives never knowing it is possible, simply because no one ever told them. And I want to tell you now, because what I am about to share is going to reframe everything you thought you understood about why some people seem to move through life with a quality of clarity and creativity and intuitive knowing that others cannot seem to access, no matter how hard they try. Here is the first thing you need to understand. Chosen ones carry a specific frequency, not metaphorically, not as a spiritual concept that cannot be measured or observed. Literally, at the level of brainwave activity, the people who have been shaped through long seasons of pressure and patience and deep interior work carry a neurological signature that researchers have been studying for decades. That signature has a name. Scientists call it gamma, and gamma is not simply a measurement on a chart. Gamma is the frequency of breakthrough. Gamma is the frequency of the eureka moment. Gamma is the brainwave pattern recorded in the minds of people during their most profound experiences of insight, creativity, and what can only be described as a sudden knowing that arrives whole rather than being assembled piece by piece. The ancient ones called it revelation. The scientists call it gamma. They are describing the same thing from two different directions. But gamma is not the only frequency that matters in this conversation. There is another one, a deeper one, a slower one that serves as the gateway through which gamma becomes accessible. That frequency is called theta. Theta waves operate in the range of 4 to 8 cycles per second, which puts them in the territory between waking and sleeping, between conscious thought and deep subconscious knowing. Theta is the frequency children live in for most of their early years. It is the reason children learn with a speed and openness that adults cannot replicate through effort alone. It is the frequency of deep creative states, of the moments just before sleep when images and ideas arrive unbidden and fully formed, of the meditative depth that takes experienced practitioners years of dedicated practice to reach consistently. And here is what makes this directly relevant to you and to the 7 minutes of silence in the practice I gave you in the last part of this message. Most adults have almost entirely lost access to theta in their waking hours. The demands of daily life, the constant input of information, the low-grade but persistent hum of anxiety that modern living produces, these things keep the brain locked in a higher frequency state called beta, which is the frequency of active problem-solving and reactive thinking. Beta is not bad. Beta keeps you functional. But beta is not where insight lives. Beta is not where creativity lives. Beta is not where the deep interior knowing that has always been one of your most significant gifts has its home. Theta is where those things live, and most adults can only reach theta accidentally, in the gap between sleeping and waking, or in rare moments of profound stillness that life rarely provides without intention. This is where a discovery made through decades of dedicated scientific research becomes something that changes everything. For a person in a season like the one you are in right now, the man responsible for bringing this discovery into a form that ordinary people can use is a neuroscientist named Dr. James Rivers. Dr. Rivers was trained at MIT, one of the most rigorous scientific institutions in the world, and his research has been affiliated with NASA, an organization that has a very specific and practical interest in the peak cognitive performance of human beings. Because when you are sending people into environments where a moment of unclear thinking can be catastrophic, you invest heavily in understanding what the human brain looks like at its best. Dr. Rivers has spent more than 30 years of his life studying the brain's electrical activity, specifically the relationship between brainwave frequency and human performance, creativity, problem-solving, and what he describes as the full activation of human cognitive potential. What Dr. Rivers and his team discovered through years of research, including a study that involved thousands of days of data collection, is something that was simultaneously surprising and, when you understand it, completely logical. They discovered that the brain has a natural capacity to synchronize its own internal frequency with external rhythmic signals. The brain, in other words, does not simply receive sound. It responds to sound. It moves towards sound. And when the right kind of sound is introduced at the right frequency, the brain will follow it the way a tuning fork resonates when a matching note is struck nearby. This phenomenon has a name. It is called brainwave entrainment, and it is not a fringe theory or a speculative idea. It is a well-documented neurological reality that has been studied in peer-reviewed research for decades. The principle is straightforward. When the ears receive two slightly different tones simultaneously, one in each ear, the brain perceives a third tone that is the mathematical difference between the two. And the brain, in its natural tendency toward synchronization, begins to produce brainwave activity at the frequency of that third perceived tone. This is the foundation of what are called binaural beats, and combined with isochronic tones, which are rhythmic pulses of sound, that further support the brain's entrainment process. They create an acoustic environment in which the brain is gently and naturally guided from its default beta state into the theta frequency that opens the door to everything that lives below ordinary conscious thought. What Dr. Rivers created from this research is something called the genius wave. It is a precisely calibrated audio track, 7 minutes long, designed to guide the brain into theta within minutes, without years of meditation practice, without any special skill or prior experience, without effort or concentration. You simply listen, and while you listen, your brain is doing something that most people spend decades trying to achieve. It is crossing the threshold into the frequency where creativity, intuition, deep memory access, and what researchers describe as heightened cognitive integration become naturally available. 7 minutes, that is what it takes. Not because 7 minutes is a magic number selected arbitrarily, but because 7 minutes is the scientifically identified window of time in which the brain, given the right acoustic guidance, completes the transition from beta into theta and begins to stabilize at that frequency. Longer is not necessarily better for the initial shift. 7 minutes is the threshold, which is why the 7 minutes of silence in the practice I gave you in the last section is not simply a spiritual discipline. It is the door through which the genius wave enters the conversation, because the silence prepares the interior, and the genius wave makes the interior activation measurable and consistent. Now I want to tell you about 2 people who used this tool and what happened in their lives when they did, because the science is important, but the story is what makes it real. The first person is a woman named Sandra. She had been running a small business for 4 years that was surviving but never quite thriving. She described herself as someone who had always had good ideas but struggled to access them under pressure, as if the ideas were there, but behind a wall she could not get through when she needed them most. She began listening to the genius wave every morning for 7 minutes before she started her workday. Within the first 2 weeks, she noticed something she described as a quiet but unmistakable shift in the quality of her thinking. The ideas that used to arrive occasionally and unpredictably began arriving more consistently. The decisions that used to require hours of deliberation began to clarify faster. 3 months after she began the practice, she made a single strategic adjustment to her business based on an insight that came to her during one of her 7-minute sessions, and that adjustment doubled her monthly revenue within the following quarter. The second person is a man named Daniel. He came to the genius not from a place of professional ambition, but from a place of deep exhaustion. He had been through a difficult 2-year period that had involved the end of a long marriage, a career disruption, and what he described as a complete loss of confidence in his own ability to make decisions that led anywhere good. He was not looking for success. He was looking for stillness. He began using the genius wave at night as part of a wind-down practice before sleep. He reported that within the first week, the quality of his sleep changed significantly. The anxious waking in the early hours reduced. The mental noise that had made it difficult to reach any kind of interior quiet began to soften. And gradually, over the following months, something else began to return. A quality of clarity that he had not felt in years. A sense that he could hear himself think again, that he could trust the thinking he was hearing. Daniel describes the experience as coming back online after years of running on a diminished signal. These are not extraordinary people who had extraordinary circumstances. These are people in situations that many of you listening right now will recognize from your own life. And what they found was not a miracle. It was access. access to a part of their own brain that had always been there, carrying everything they needed, but that the noise and pressure of their lives had made effectively unreachable without help. I know that some of you are already arriving at the thought that I know tends to come at this point in a conversation like this one. You are thinking that $39 is not nothing. And you are right. $39 is not nothing. It is a real number that represents a real decision, especially if you are in a season where every financial choice carries weight. I want to acknowledge that plainly, because you deserve to be spoken to honestly and not steered around the reality of your situation. Here is what I can tell you. The Genius Wave normally sells for $49. Today, through the link in the pinned comment below this video, it is available for $39. That is the lowest price at which it is offered, and it is only available through that single specific link, not through a search engine, not through any other website or platform, only through the pinned comment link. This matters because there are counterfeit versions of this product circulating online, and a counterfeit brainwave audio is not simply ineffective. It is potentially harmful because it introduces frequencies into the neural environment without the precise calibration that makes the original safe and effective. Please protect yourself by purchasing only through the verified link. The purchase comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee. Full and complete. No complicated process. No questions that feel like interrogation. If you use the Genius Wave for 90 days and you do not experience a meaningful shift in your cognitive clarity, your creativity, your quality of sleep, or your sense of interior access to the deeper parts of yourself, you ask for your money back and you receive it. The risk is entirely on the side of the product, not on yours. This offer is time limited and quantity limited at this price point. The $39 access is not permanent. When this window closes, the price returns to $49, and the specific conditions that make today's offer available will not automatically return. If something in you is saying yes, I want you to honor that yes today, not because urgency is a trick being used to pressure you, but because the part of you that knows when something is right has been right before, even when you did not listen to it. And the cost of not listening is something you already know from experience. The link is in the pinned comment. It is the only legitimate place to access the Genius Wave at this price. Go there when this message ends. And in the next part, I want to sit with you in a different kind of space entirely. Before we move any further forward, I need to stop. I need to stop the momentum of everything I have been building in this message and do something that most content like this does not do. Most content like this keeps moving. It keeps the energy rising. It keeps the promise in front of you and the pain behind you, neatly tucked away where it cannot interrupt the forward motion of the narrative. But I am not going to do that here, because you deserve better than a message that acknowledges your pain only long enough to reframe it and move on. Some pain deserves to be sat with. Some loss deserves to be named clearly, without immediately being transformed into a lesson or a setup for a blessing. And what the years of waiting have taken from you is exactly that kind of loss. So I want to stay here for a moment, not in the promise, in the cost, because the waiting has cost you things, real things, specific things, things that cannot be fully recovered simply by the arrival of what you have been waiting for. And the honest truth is that a part of you already knows this, and that knowledge sits underneath the hope, like a quiet grief that the hope has not yet been able to fully address. I want to address it now, not to discourage you, not to pull you back from the threshold that is coming, but because a person who has not been allowed to grieve what was taken from them carries that grief into their next season, and it becomes weight they were never meant to bring with them. Let me name what the years have taken. They have taken relationships that could have been built. Think about that carefully. Not the relationships that ended because they were wrong for you, though those endings have their own grief attached to them. Think about the relationships that never began, the connections that did not form because you were in survival mode, because the interior weight of an unresolved season makes it difficult to show up fully in spaces where genuine connection happens. Think about the friendships that stayed surface level because you did not have enough to give. Think about the love that did not develop because you were too tired, too guarded, too absorbed in trying to hold your life together to be fully present to another person. Think about the community you might have been part of if your energy had not been consumed by endurance. Those relationships, the ones that never fully formed, represent a real loss. Not a loss that cancels what is coming, but a loss that deserves to be acknowledged as real before you move forward. The years have also taken professional ground that could have been covered. Think about where your career, your vocation, your work in the world might be right now if the waiting season had not imposed its particular kind of interruption. Think about the skills that went undeveloped because the circumstances of the season did not support their development. Think about the opportunities that appeared in windows you were not positioned to step through at the moment they opened. Think about the version of your professional life that was possible in your 20s or your 30s, or whatever decade you find yourself looking back at now. That did not materialize because the season had other requirements. That ground is real. The distance between where you are professionally and where you might have been is a real distance. And the years that produced that distance did not ask your permission before they passed. Years have taken the freedom to speak your dreams out loud without editing them first. Do you remember the last time you told someone the full version of what you are believing for, without reducing it, without softening it, without watching their face for signs of skepticism, and preemptively adjusting your language to protect yourself from the discomfort of being doubted by someone who matters to you? The season of waiting teaches a person to make themselves smaller in the telling of their dreams because the full telling, offered to the wrong ears at the wrong time, has been met with responses that cost more than the sharing was worth. And so you learn to edit. You learn to offer a reduced version, a reasonable version, a version that would not invite the particular pain of someone who loves you looking at you with a kind of gentle pity that is more wounding than outright dismissal. That editing is a loss. The freedom to dream loudly and without apology is something the waiting season quietly removed from you, and it deserves to be named as a taking, and perhaps the deepest taking of all. The waiting has taken a portion of your faith in yourself, not your faith in God, or in the universe, or in whatever larger power you orient your life around. That faith has survived. The fact that you are here, still listening, still reaching toward a message like this one, is evidence that that faith has survived. But faith in yourself, trust in your own instincts, confidence in your own judgment, belief in your own ability to read a situation correctly and act on what you read. The waiting season, with its repeated experience of trying and not arriving, of reading a situation as ready and finding it was not yet, of believing something was about to shift and watching it not shift, has done something quiet and corrosive to the way you trust your own interior signals. You second-guess yourself now in ways you did not before. You hesitate at thresholds where you once would have stepped forward without ceremony. You have developed a relationship with your own hope that involves a kind of protective distance, because hope that is allowed to grow fully has, in your experience, sometimes become a wound that is a real taking. And I am not going to tell you to simply get over it or declare your way past it. I am going to sit with you in it for a moment and say that the wound is real, the cost is real, and you have been carrying it with a grace that most people around you have never fully understood or acknowledged. Now I want to tell you about a man who understood this kind of cost from the inside, not from the triumphant end of his story, where everything resolved and the meaning became clear and the suffering was retroactively justified by the outcome. I want to tell you about the middle of his story, the part that does not get preached about as often, because the middle is not comfortable and it does not produce the kind of clarity that makes people feel good at the end of a service. His name was Joseph. Yes, the same Joseph I mentioned at the beginning of this message, because Joseph's story does not only begin in the pit. There is a longer, harder, more specific version of what the pit took from him that rarely gets told in full. Joseph had a coat. You know about the coat. But the coat was not just a garment. In the culture and the context of that time, the coat his father gave him was a public declaration of identity and favor. It marked him in front of everyone who could see him as someone specifically chosen, specifically set apart, specifically loved with a love that exceeded the ordinary. And when his brothers stripped that coat from him, they did not just take a piece of clothing. They took his public identity. They took the visible marker of his belonging. They took the thing that said to the world around him, "This person has been seen and named and claimed." And he watched them walk away with it. He felt the air on his skin where the coat had been, and he had no power to take it back. Then there was the pit itself, which was not a metaphor for Joseph. It was an actual hole in the ground, an actual absence of water, an actual state of physical vulnerability in which he could hear his brothers eating their meal above him while he sat below them with no certainty that he would survive the afternoon. Think about what that does to a person's sense of safety. Think about what that does to a person's ability to trust the people who are supposed to be their closest community. Joseph went into that pit trusting that the world, even an imperfect world, had a basic orientation toward his survival. He came out of it knowing something different, and that knowing never fully leaves a person. Even when the story gets better, the body remembers the pit. Then came Egypt, which, if you only read the summary version of Joseph's story, sounds like a step toward the resolution. But living through Egypt was not a summary. It was years. Years of servitude in a foreign place, with a foreign language and a foreign set of rules, doing excellent work for a master who recognized his value, and then having that value used against him when his master's wife lied about him, and he was thrown into prison. Another pit, a different kind, but a pit. And in that prison, he correctly interpreted the dreams of two fellow prisoners, the cupbearer and the baker. And when the cupbearer was restored to his position, exactly as Joseph had told him he would be, the man forgot about Joseph. He went back to his life, and Joseph remained in prison. 2 more years, according to the text. 2 more years after a promise of being remembered that turned into being forgotten. I am not telling you the part where it gets better. You know that part exists. But I am asking you to stay in the middle of Joseph's story for a moment, because the middle is where you are. And the middle is not a diminished place. The middle is the most honest place. It is the place where a person discovers what they are actually made of, not what they perform being made of, but what remains when performance is no longer possible. When the pit is real and the silence is real, and the waiting has gone on long enough that optimism has been replaced by something quieter and more durable. A stubborn remaining, a refusal to disappear, a choosing every morning to still be here. That is where you are, and that is not a small thing. That is, in fact, one of the bravest things a human being can do. There is something I need to give you now that goes beyond encouragement and beyond the practical tools I have already placed in your hands. What I want to give you in this part is a new way of seeing, not a new feeling, not a new affirmation to repeat to yourself in the mirror, but a genuinely different framework for understanding the season you have been living inside. Because one of the most quietly devastating things about a long season of waiting is not the waiting itself. It is the story you have been telling yourself about what the waiting means. And if that story has been written in the language of clock time, in years counted, and doors numbered, and prayers tallied against results, then the story has been telling you something that is not entirely true. Not because the years are not real. They are real. Not because the doors are not real. They are real. But because clock time is only one way of measuring a life, and it is not the most accurate one when it comes to the kind of life you are living. Let me introduce you to two ancient ideas that I believe are going to do something significant in the interior of you if you let them land in the right place. The first idea comes from the ancient Greek language, which had a remarkable quality that English does not share. English uses one word for time. The Greeks use two, and the difference between those two words is not a small grammatical distinction. It is a completely different understanding of what time actually is and how it actually works. The first Greek word for time is chronos. Chronos is the word from which we get words like chronological and chronicle. Chronos is clock time, calendar time, measurable, sequential, forward-moving time. Chronos is the time that a watch tracks and a calendar counts. It is the time that produces sentences like it has been 3 years, or it has been 7 years, or I have been waiting for longer than I can reasonably explain to someone who has not been waiting with me. Chronos is the time that the world around you uses to evaluate whether you are on schedule, whether you are ahead or behind, whether the things you are believing for are arriving in a reasonable window, or whether you have perhaps been naive to keep believing as long as you have. Chronos is the time that has been telling you that you are late. But the second Greek word for time is kairos, and kairos is something entirely different. Kairos does not mean a sequence of moments. Kairos means the right moment, the appointed moment, the moment that carries within it the specific quality of readiness, the specific convergence of conditions that makes a particular thing not only possible but inevitable. Kairos is the moment when the fig is ripe. The Greeks used that image specifically, the ripeness of a fig, to illustrate what kairos means. Because a fig that is not yet ripe is not a failed fig. It is a fig in process, and the patience required to wait for the fig to ripen is not a punishment for the person waiting. It is simply the respect for a natural process that cannot be hurried without destroying the very thing you are waiting for. When the ancient writers used the word kairos, they were not talking about a moment that arrives on a schedule that human beings can predict or plan around. They were talking about a moment that arrives when everything required for its arrival has been assembled. When the interior of the person has been shaped to the precise degree needed to carry what the moment will bring. When the external conditions have aligned in ways that may be invisible to the human eye, but are completely visible to the intelligence that orchestrates kairos moments. Kairos cannot be rushed. Kairos cannot be delayed past its own appointed arrival. And kairos, critically, cannot be measured by chronos. You cannot look at a kairos season through a chronos lens and arrive at an accurate understanding of where you are or how close you are to the moment of shift. This is what I need you to hear clearly. You have been measuring a kairos life with a chronos clock. You have been standing in front of a fig tree that is in full and active process of becoming ripe, counting the days since you planted the seed and feeling increasingly uncertain about whether the fruit is coming. When the fruit is not only coming but is already forming. The process is real. The progress is real. You simply cannot see it yet from the angle where you are standing. Kairos is not a reward for effort. This is important to say explicitly because the achievement culture that most of us were raised inside tells us that outcomes are proportional to effort, that the speed of arrival is a reflection of the quality of the work, that if the result has not yet appeared, it means the work has not yet been sufficient. Kairos does not operate on that logic. Kairos is not a grade given in response to a performance. Kairos is a positioning. You are not being evaluated and found almost ready. You are being placed. You are being situated at the exact coordinates where the appointed moment will find you when it arrives. And the placement requires that you be in a specific interior condition, carrying a specific quality of readiness that could only be produced by the specific journey you have been on. You are not behind. You are not almost there. You are being positioned for a kairos moment that chronos cannot measure and that your own impatience cannot accelerate. And that is not a comforting deflection. That is a structural reality about how appointed moments work. Now I want to give you the second ancient idea. And this one I want to introduce through a specific word from the Hebrew language, a word that appears in one of the most often quoted lines from the ancient scriptural tradition, and that almost always gets translated in a way that loses its most important meaning. The word is kava, and it appears in the text that is most commonly translated as "those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength." You have probably heard that line. You may have held on to it in difficult seasons, but the translation, though beautiful, is incomplete. Because the word kava does not primarily mean to wait in the sense of sitting still and enduring the passage of time. The word kava comes from a root that means to twist together, to braid, to interweave multiple strands into a single cord that is stronger than any of the individual strands could be alone. Think about what it means to braid a rope. When you braid a rope, you are not passive. You are actively engaged in a process of interweaving. You are taking strands that are individually vulnerable and weaving them together with intention and pressure and repetition until they become something that can bear weight that no single strand could hold. The braiding takes time. The braiding requires that each strand be worked against the others, under tension, through the process that produces the strength. A braided rope that has been rushed is a weak rope. A braided rope that has been worked with patience and proper tension is capable of holding things that would snap a lesser cord. Now apply that image to the years you have been living through. The difficulty was not random. The pressure was not purposeless. The tensions of the waiting season, the places where your faith was pulled against your doubt, where your hope was worked against your disappointment, where your identity was braided against the circumstances that tried to unravel it. These were not signs that the rope was failing. These were the process by which the rope was being made. Every difficult year added a strand. Every season of endurance added to the tensile strength of what is being assembled inside you. The kava of your life is not behind schedule. The braiding is nearly complete, and what is being completed is something that holds the weight of everything that is about to be placed in your hands. You are not delayed. You are being assembled. And I want to speak now to the specific fear that lives underneath all the other fears in a season like this one. The fear that the promise has an expiration date. The fear that the appointed time, if there ever was one, has already passed. The fear that the window that was open for you has quietly closed while you were still trying to gather enough courage to step through it. This fear is real. It visits most chosen ones at some point in the waiting, usually in the late hours, usually when the evidence seems stacked most clearly against the continuation of hope. And to that fear, I want to speak this directly. There is a concept in the ancient scriptural tradition that addresses exactly this fear, and it does so without softening or deflecting. The concept is simply this: what has been ordained cannot be canceled by delay. The appointed time is not a window that opens and closes according to a schedule that human impatience can miss. The appointed time is a fixed point in the architecture of your story that you are moving toward with every breath you take. And that is moving toward you with a momentum that no amount of your doubt or your delay or your detour can permanently redirect. The ancient writers expressed this with a confidence that was not naivety. It was not the confidence of people who had not suffered. It was the confidence of people who had suffered extensively and had discovered on the other side of the suffering that the appointed time had not failed them. It had simply arrived on a schedule that was not theirs to set. Joseph in the pit could not see the palace, but the palace was already being prepared. The appointment was already written. The moment was already fixed. And all the years between the dream and the fulfillment of the dream were not evidence that the dream was false. They were the process by which Joseph became the person who could hold the dream without being destroyed by it. What God has ordained, delay cannot cancel. I want you to say that to yourself right now, slowly, in whatever private interior space you carry these things. What has been appointed for your life has not expired. The years have not voided the promise. The silence has not been a cancellation. The silence has been the sound of assembly. The sound of things being braided together at a level you cannot yet see, in a dimension of time that your chronos clock cannot measure, toward a kairos moment that is not coming eventually. It is coming now, and you are standing right now, in the last stretch of the wilderness before the appointed place becomes visible. The wilderness is not where your story ends. The wilderness is where the person who can carry the next chapter is finally, fully formed. And the formation, beloved one, is not still in progress. It is reaching completion in this exact season that you are standing in today. You were not placed in the wilderness as punishment. You were not overlooked by the intelligence that knows your name and your appointed time. You were brought through a process that could only produce what it has produced by taking exactly as long as it has taken. And the person emerging from that process, the person you are becoming in this very moment, is not a person who almost made it through. It is a person who has been shaped by the wilderness into exactly the vessel that the appointed moment requires. Kairos is not behind you. It is not somewhere in the theoretical future. It is pressing against the membrane of your present moment with a force that is building toward the kind of arrival that changes everything in a single day, in a single hour, in a single moment that you will look back on for the rest of your life as the turning point. The moment when the chronos years gave way to the kairos now. The moment when the braiding was complete and the rope held its first full weight. The moment when you understood, not as an idea, but as a lived reality, that what had been ordained for you could never have been canceled by anything you went through to get there. That moment is not in the distance. It is in the arrival. And you are already inside it. Something is moving. I need you to feel that before I say anything else in this part, because feeling it is more important than understanding it. And most of what I am about to describe is something your body already knows, even if your mind has not yet caught up with the knowing. There is a shift happening in the interior of your life that is not yet fully visible in the exterior of your circumstances. And that gap between the interior movement and the exterior evidence is one of the most disorienting places a chosen one can stand. Because you can feel something changing, but you cannot yet point to it and show someone else the change. You cannot yet produce the proof. And in a world that asks for proof before it offers its acknowledgement, that gap can make you question whether what you are feeling is real, or whether it is simply another wave of hope that will eventually flatten back into the ordinary. It is real. What you are feeling is real. And I want to spend this part of the message describing exactly what it is and what it means for the 3 specific areas of your life where the movement is most concentrated right now. But before I describe what is coming, I want to describe what you are currently feeling in your body and in your interior life, because naming the feeling accurately is itself a form of confirmation. The feeling you are carrying right now, the one that sits underneath the surface of your daily functioning and occasionally breaks through in moments of quiet, is not anxiety, though it can borrow the physical sensations of anxiety. It is not sadness, though it can carry a weight that resembles sadness. It is a very specific feeling that does not have a precise word in the English language, but that I would describe as the feeling of being on the edge of something enormous without being able to see the shape of it yet. It is the feeling of standing in a doorway between 2 rooms, with the room behind you fully known and the room ahead still dark, and knowing with a certainty that bypasses logic that the room ahead contains something that will change the entire story. That feeling is not imagination. That feeling is spiritual perception. And spiritual perception in a chosen one who has been trained through years of pressure and patience is one of the most accurate instruments available to a human being. The feeling is real. The movement is real. And here is what is specifically moving in your life right now. The first area is relationships. And I want to be specific about what this means, because the word relationships can be applied in so many directions that it sometimes loses its precision. What is happening in your relational world right now and what is about to accelerate in the coming season is a divinely orchestrated reorganization, not a collapse, not a punishment, a reorganization. And it may already be visible to you in the form of certain people in your life, beginning to drift without drama, without conflict, without a clear and definable reason for the distance that is growing. Connections that once felt necessary are becoming optional. Conversations that once felt nourishing are becoming flat. People who occupied significant space in your interior life are quietly and without announcement moving toward the periphery. This is not loss. This is alignment. The people who are moving away from the center of your life are not being taken from you cruelly. They are being released from a proximity that no longer serves either of you, because the season you are entering requires a different kind of companionship than the season you are leaving, and the space that is being created by those departures is not going to remain empty. It is being held open with intention for the people who are moving toward you right now, from directions you cannot yet see, carrying gifts of understanding and collaboration and genuine recognition that the previous chapter of your relational life could not have provided. The new people will not announce themselves dramatically. They will arrive quietly, in ordinary circumstances, in the kind of moments that do not look significant on the surface. A conversation that goes deeper than it was supposed to. A connection made in an unexpected place that carries an unusual quality of ease and recognition. A person who sees something in you immediately that others have taken years to notice or have never noticed at all. These arrivals are not accidents. They are appointments. They are the people who have been on their way to you for a long time and who are now close enough that the space needs to be ready for them when they arrive. What you should not do in this relational transition is try to hold on to what is leaving. The impulse to grip tighter when you feel something loosening is understandable, especially when you have already lost things you did not want to lose. But gripping a connection that is completing its season in your life does not preserve the connection. It only delays the clearing of the space that the next connection needs. Let what is leaving leave with grace. Release it with gratitude for what it was, without requiring it to be something it is no longer designed to be. The clearing is preparation, and the preparation is almost complete. The second area where something is moving is purpose. And this one I want to speak to carefully, because purpose is one of the most loaded words in the vocabulary of a chosen one who has been in a long waiting season. Purpose has sometimes been used to put pressure on you, to make you feel that every moment you are not actively advancing toward your calling is a moment of spiritual deficit. And that pressure has sometimes made the question of purpose feel like an accusation rather than an invitation. I am not using the word that way here. What I am describing when I say that purpose is moving in your life right now is something much quieter and more specific than a grand revelation about your ultimate destiny. What is moving is the answer to the practical question that has been circling in you for a long time. The question of what to do next, not what to do with the rest of your life, because that question is too large and too abstract to be useful in the specific moment you are standing in right now. But what to do next? The single next step. The one clear, manageable, specific action that is the right move for this particular moment in your particular story. That answer is coming. It may have already been arriving in fragments that you have been dismissing as too simple or too obvious or significant enough to be the divine answer you were expecting. Because the answer, when it comes, often does not arrive with the weight and ceremony that its importance deserves. It arrives as a quiet knowing, a simple clarity, a gentle but persistent inclination toward one specific thing that keeps returning, no matter how many times you set it aside. Pay attention to that inclination. It is not random. It is not your own wishful thinking, dressed up as direction. It is the appointed step revealing itself in the only way that steps can reveal themselves, which is one at a time, in the present moment, to a person who is present enough to receive it. The question of what you should be doing with your life will answer itself in one clear small step, and that step is closer to being visible to you than it has been at any point in the waiting season. Do not wait for the full map before you move. Move on the step that is visible. The next step will become visible once you are standing on the one that is available to you right now. What you should not do in this season of purpose becoming clear is compare your step to someone else's stride. There are people around you, perhaps people you have watched from a distance with a mixture of admiration and something more complicated, who appear to be moving faster, covering more ground, advancing toward visible expressions of purpose, with a momentum that makes your single quiet step feel inadequate by comparison. It is not inadequate. It is yours, and a step that is genuinely yours, taken in the right direction at the right time, carries more weight in the architecture of your destiny than 100 impressive-looking movements, taken in directions that were not appointed for you. Your step is enough. Your step is the right one. Take it. The third area where something is moving is resources and opportunities. And I want to be direct about what I mean here, because this part of the message is sometimes the part that sounds too good to be true to a person who has been in a long season of scarcity, whether that scarcity has been financial or relational or professional, or simply the scarcity of having enough interior margin to function with generosity and creativity rather than mere survival. What is moving in the area of resources is not the arrival of something you have to compete for, or fight for, or make happen through the right combination of strategy and hustle. What is moving is the beginning of a shift from striving to receiving. Not passive receiving, not sitting and waiting for things to fall from the sky, but the kind of receiving that happens when a person is aligned with their appointed time, and the things that belong to their season begin to find their way to them with a naturalness that striving could never produce. Doors that you knocked on for years without answer will begin to open from the inside. Connections that you tried to manufacture through effort will begin to form organically through alignment. Resources that seem to require a specific sequence of achievements before they could be accessed will begin to appear outside of that sequence, because the Kairos moment does not follow the same logic as the Chronos effort. What you should not do in this season is dismiss what arrives as too small or too simple to be the provision you were believing for. Provision in a Kairos season often begins in small forms that carry large implications. A conversation that opens a door, an introduction that leads to an opportunity, a small step taken in faith that releases a momentum that could not have been manufactured through any amount of strategic effort. Do not despise the small beginning. The small beginning in a Kairos season is not a consolation prize. It is a seed carrying the full genetic code of everything it is about to become. I feel something inside you that is coming alive as you hear this. I feel the part of you that has been holding back its own hope, the part that learned to protect itself by not fully believing, beginning to loosen. And I want to speak directly to that part. You do not have to believe perfectly. You do not have to have zero doubt. You do not have to arrive at this threshold in a state of unbroken faith in order to receive what this season is carrying for you. You simply have to remain. You simply have to stay present enough to receive the step when it appears. You simply have to be willing to let what is moving move, without standing in the way of it out of a well-practiced self-protection that served you in a previous season, but is no longer required in this one. Something is coming in your relationships. Something is coming in your sense of direction and purpose. Something is coming in the area of resources and opportunity. And it is not coming as a distant future event. It is coming as a present tense unfolding that has already begun at a level beneath what your eyes can yet confirm. If you can feel that movement, even as a small interior tremor of recognition beneath all the accumulated weight of the waiting, I want you to type one word in the comment below. Type the word ready, not as a declaration that you have it all figured out, not as a performance of confidence you may not fully feel, but as a simple statement to yourself and to the season that is opening around you, that you are no longer going to stand at the edge of what is coming and watch it from a distance. You are stepping in. Type ready if you are willing to step in. The movement I described in the last part is real, and I want you to carry that reality with you into this part, because what I am about to give you here is something that builds directly on the foundation of everything that has been said so far. We have talked about the cost of the waiting. We have talked about the science of the frequency. We have talked about Kairos time and the braiding of Kava and the three areas where something is already shifting in your life. And all of that has been preparation for this moment, which is the moment where I want to speak, not about what is happening around you, but about who you are becoming through it. Because the waiting season does not only produce outcomes, it produces a person. And the person it has produced in you has a specific name, not the name your parents gave you, though that name is precious and has its own meaning. I am talking about the name that describes what you have become through the process. The name that identifies the specific function you carry in the lives of the people around you and in the larger story that your life is part of. And the name I want to give you today, after everything I have witnessed in the shape of this message and in the shape of the journey that brought you to it, is this: you are a waymaker. I want to explain exactly what that means, because it is a name that carries more weight and more precision than it might appear to carry on first hearing. A waymaker is not simply someone who has found their own path through difficult terrain. That would be remarkable enough on its own. But a waymaker is something more specific than that. A waymaker is a person who, by walking through terrain that had no existing path, creates a way where there was none before, not only for themselves, but for everyone who will come behind them. A waymaker does not find a road that was already there. A waymaker becomes the road. The very act of moving through the wilderness, of enduring the years that had no clear direction, of remaining in the waiting when every reasonable instinct said to give up and accept a smaller life. That act of remaining has been carving a path through territory that was previously impassable. And the people who come after you, the ones who will face similar terrain and similar seasons and similar moments of wondering whether the promise is still real, they will find the going easier because you went first, because you did not turn back, because you kept walking even when the walking produced no visible result for longer than seemed fair or reasonable. This is not a small thing. This is, in fact, one of the most significant things a human life can be. Most people in the history of the world have spent their lives walking on roads that someone else made, walking in paths that someone else cleared at great personal cost in an earlier season. You are one of the makers. You are one of the people whose life is not only about arriving at your own destination, but about making arrival possible for those who come after you. The years that felt purposeless were not purposeless. They were the years in which the path was being made. Every step taken in faith when faith was not producing visible results. Every morning you chose to remain in your integrity, when a compromise would have been easier. Every moment you held on to the thread of your calling, when everything around you suggested that the calling was a fantasy. Each of those moments was a footfall on the path. Each one was a part of the way being made. You are a waymaker, and the fullness of what that means is only now beginning to become visible to you. I want to take you somewhere now. I want to give you an experience in your imagination that is going to make everything I have just said feel not like an idea, but like a reality you can inhabit. This is a guided visualization, and I want you to receive it with your full interior attention. If you need to close your eyes after reading each part to let it settle, do that. Take the time you need. This is not a part of the message to rush through. Picture yourself standing at a threshold, not a metaphorical one, but a physical one that you can see clearly in your mind. You are standing in a doorway. The doorway is made of stone, old stone, the kind that has been standing long enough to carry the memory of everyone who has ever passed through it. The stone is worn smooth at the sides where thousands of hands have rested as people paused in this exact place to gather themselves before moving forward. You are standing in the center of that. doorway, and for a moment you are neither inside nor outside. You are at the threshold itself. Now I want you to turn and look behind you, back through the doorway at the territory you have just crossed. Look at it honestly. Do not minimize what you see there, but do not catastrophize it either. See it clearly. See the long stretches of ground that offered no shade and no clear direction. See the places where you stopped and sat down because you were not sure you could keep going, and then got up and kept going anyway. See the nights that were darker than nights should be, and mornings that came anyway. See the relationships that formed and unformed along the way, the ones that strengthened you and the ones that cost you more than they gave, and recognize that each of them was part of the terrain through which you walked. See the prayers that seemed to disappear into silence, and understand now, from this vantage point at the threshold, that the silence was not absence. The silence was the sound of something being built on the other side of the wall you could not yet see through. Look at all of it, and then, before you turn away from it, I want you to say something to that territory. Not out loud if your environment does not allow it, but clearly and deliberately in the interior of you. Say this: I walked through that, all of it, and I am still here. And it made me exactly who I needed to be to stand where I am standing right now. Say it. Let it be real. Let the acknowledgement of what you have walked through be as full and as genuine as the pain was when you were walking through it. You earned the right to that acknowledgement. Do not rush past it. Now turn back to face forward. Look through the threshold into what is ahead. And I want to tell you something important about what you will see, or perhaps more accurately, what you will not see. You will not see the full landscape of what is ahead. You will not see a clear and detailed map of the next season laid out before you in reassuring specificity. What you will see is enough. You will see the first stretch of ground on the other side of the threshold. You will see that it is different. From the ground behind you, you will see light falling on it at a different angle. You will see that the terrain, while not entirely clear, is not the same terrain you have been crossing. It is new ground, and new ground to a waymaker is not frightening. New ground to a waymaker is the invitation. Now I want you to notice something about where you are standing. You are at the threshold. You are not approaching the threshold from a distance. You are not standing somewhere back in the wilderness, wondering if the threshold exists. You are already there. You are already standing in the doorway. The crossing from the old ground to the new ground is not something that requires a significant additional journey. It requires a single step. One step forward from where you are already standing. One step that you are already positioned to take. One step that the entirety of the waiting season, with all of its shaping and braiding and forming and assembling, has been preparing you to take with steadiness and with a kind of quiet confidence that does not need to announce itself because it is not performing for anyone. It simply knows. You are already at the threshold. You did not know that, perhaps, when this message began. You may have felt like the threshold was still somewhere ahead, still something you were working toward, still a destination rather than your current location. But the threshold is where you are standing right now. It has been where you are standing for longer than you knew, and the step forward is not a leap of faith into the unknown. It is a natural next movement for a person who has already done the hardest part, which was getting here. Before I move forward, I want to speak a blessing over you. Not a formal religious blessing with language designed to sound sacred, a personal one. The kind that one person speaks over another when they have sat together long enough in the truth of a difficult season to mean every word. May the clarity that has been building in you during this long season now rise to the surface of your daily life and guide your next step with a sureness that surprises you. May the relationships that are moving toward you arrive with a quality of recognition that heals the places where being misunderstood left its mark. May the resources and opportunities that belong to this new season find their way to you with an ease that quietly undoes the story you have been telling yourself about how hard everything has to be. May you wake tomorrow morning with a specific and gentle sense that something has shifted, not in some distant future, but in the interior of you, right now, in this moment, as these words land in the place they were always intended to reach. May you know in the deepest and most unshakable part of yourself that you are not forgotten, that you were never forgotten, that the silence was not abandonment, that the wilderness was not your permanent address, that the threshold you are standing on right now is real, and the ground on the other side of it is already yours, and the step forward is already in you, and the waymaker in you has always known how to move. You are seen. You are named. You are standing exactly where you are supposed to be standing, and the step forward is not something you have to manufacture. It is something you simply have to allow. You are standing at the threshold. That is where part 8 left you, and I am not going to pull you away from that position as I move into this part of the message, because everything I am about to say is most powerful when received by a person who knows they are standing at a doorway and not wandering in the middle of a wilderness with no landmarks in sight. The threshold changes the quality of what you can receive. A person who is lost can receive comfort. A person who is at the threshold can receive instruction. And instruction is what this part is for. Because the question that naturally arises when a person begins to feel the reality of a shift, when the interior movement becomes undeniable and the kairos moment begins to press against the membrane of the present, with increasing insistence, that question is not why. The why has been answered, at least in the measure that a human being can receive the answer in the middle of the story rather than at its end. The question that arises at the threshold is, what? What do I do right now, in the practical, specific, ordinary hours of my actual life, to move in alignment with what is coming, rather than in unconscious resistance to it? What are the real, concrete, manageable actions available to me today that constitute genuine participation in the shift, rather than passive, waiting for the shift to arrive fully formed without my involvement? I am going to answer that question in 3 specific areas, and I want to be as practical as this message has ever been, because the chosen one, who has been through a long season of waiting, has had enough of beautiful language that does not translate into anything they can actually do when the message ends and the ordinary world comes back. You deserve both the beauty and the practical, and in this part, I am giving you the practical. Before I give you the 3 areas, I want to say one thing about the nature of action in a kairos season, because it is different from the nature of action in a chronos season, and the difference matters. In a chronos season, the dominant mode of human effort is striving. Striving means applying sustained force in a chosen direction, with the expectation that the force itself will produce the result. Striving has its place. It is not wrong. But striving in a kairos season often produces the frustrating experience of working very hard and moving very little, because the appointed moment does not yield to force the way a chronos outcome does. In a kairos season, the dominant mode of alignment is not striving, but positioning. Positioning means placing yourself, your attention, your energy, and your daily choices in the locations and orientations where the appointed moment is most likely to find you when it arrives. Positioning is active. It requires intention and consistency, but it does not have the exhausting quality of striving because it is moving with the current rather than against it. Everything I am about to tell you is about positioning, not about working harder, not about doing more, about doing the right things in the right direction with a quality of intentionality that striving could never produce because striving is too loud to hear the specific instructions that positioning requires. The first area is relationships, and the practical action available to you right now in this area is simpler than you might expect. It is this: stop managing the departures and start making room for the arrivals. What I mean by that is specific. In the relational reorganization that is currently underway in your life, there is a natural human tendency to spend the majority of your relational energy on the connections that are loosening, trying to understand why they are loosening, trying to hold them in place, trying to have the conversation that will restore them to what they were. This is understandable. Losing relational proximity to people who have been part of your life is genuinely difficult, even when the loosening is clearly the right movement for both of you. But the energy spent managing departures is energy not available for receiving arrivals. And the arrivals, right now, need your attention more than the departures do. The practical action in the area of relationships is to identify one space in your weekly life where you are consistently present, consistently open, and consistently willing to allow a new connection to form without forcing it or evaluating it too quickly. It does not need to be a dramatic or elaborate space. It could be a regular gathering, a consistent routine, a recurring context where you show up as yourself without the armor of self-protection that the waiting season taught you to wear as a default. Just one space, just one consistent point of availability, and then show up there with the interior posture of someone who is expecting the right people to appear, not with desperation or agenda, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that their appointed connections are already on their way. You do not need to manufacture the new relationships. You need to be present in a place where they can find you. The waymaker does not chase down their companions. The waymaker walks the path, and the companions who were always meant to walk it with them recognize the path and join it. The second area is purpose, and the practical action available to you right now in this area requires something that may feel counterintuitive after a long season of searching for clarity. The action is to stop searching for the full picture and start honoring the fragment that is already visible. Because here is what I know about the way purpose reveals itself in a Kairos season. It does not arrive as a complete and detailed plan that answers every question and eliminates every uncertainty. It arrives as a fragment, a small, specific, quietly insistent, knowing about one thing that you are supposed to do, or one direction you are supposed to move in, or one capacity you are supposed to begin exercising more consistently, that keeps returning to your attention, no matter how many times you set it aside, because it seems too small or too simple to be the grand answer you were expecting. That fragment is not a consolation prize. That fragment is the seed of the full picture, and the full picture will not become visible until you act on the fragment. This is not a test of your worthiness. It is simply the architecture of how purpose unfolds in a Kairos moment. The next step reveals itself to the person who is already moving on the current step. The map does not appear in full before the journey begins. It appears section by section, step by step, as the journey is underway. So the practical action in the area of purpose is to identify the fragment, to sit quietly, perhaps during your 7 minutes of daily practice, and ask yourself honestly and without agenda what the one thing is that keeps returning. Not the one thing that sounds most impressive, or most spiritually significant. The one thing that keeps showing up with a quiet persistence that feels less like ambition and more like recognition. The one thing that, when you imagine yourself doing it, produces a quality of interior rightness that does not require external validation to feel true. Identify that fragment, and then do one concrete thing today, not tomorrow, not when circumstances are more favorable, not when you feel more ready, but today, in the actual hours that remain in this actual day that constitutes a movement toward it. Write the first paragraph, make the call, send the message, register for the thing, begin the conversation. The action does not need to be large. It needs to be real. It needs to be taken in the direction of the fragment rather than around it or in preparation for eventually getting to it. One real movement today. That is the action. The third area is resources and opportunities. And the practical action available to you right now in this area is perhaps the most important one to understand clearly, because it addresses the deepest pattern that the waiting season tends to install in the people who have been through it. That pattern is this: you have learned, through repeated experience of effort not producing proportional result, to approach the area of resources and opportunity with a combination of hope and preemptive bracing. You hope for the door to open, but you brace simultaneously for it not to, because the bracing has been protective. The bracing has been the thing that allowed you to keep functioning when the door did not open yet again. And so hope and bracing have become so intertwined in your approach to this area of your life that they arrive together, inseparable, every time an opportunity appears. The bracing served you in the season it was formed in. It was the right response to a difficult environment. But carried into the new season, the bracing becomes interference. It creates in your interior a signal that is simultaneously reaching toward the opportunity and pulling back from it. And that mixed signal does not produce clarity or alignment. It produces the exhausting experience of almost but not quite, of being close to a breakthrough without being able to complete the crossing. The practical action in the area of resources and opportunity is to practice what I am going to call open-handed receiving. It is a daily interior exercise that requires no external circumstances to change before you begin it. It works like this. Once each day, in a quiet moment, you bring to your conscious attention one specific area where you are believing for provision or opportunity, and you practice holding it in your hands with your palms facing upward rather than your fists closed around it. Open hands cannot grip and cannot brace at the same time. Open hands are the physical posture of someone who is ready to receive without the preemptive contraction of self-protection. You cannot receive with clenched fists. You can only receive with open hands. This is not passive. Open-handed receiving does not mean doing nothing and waiting for things to fall from the sky. It means taking your aligned, positioned, intentional actions in the direction of what you are believing for, while simultaneously releasing the death grip of forced outcome that striving produces. It means doing your part with full commitment, while trusting that the Kairos moment will do its part with equal faithfulness. You bring the availability. Heaven brings the appointed. Convergence. And when those two things meet, what appears in the area of resources and opportunity will not look like something you fought for and finally extracted through sheer force of will. It will look like something that arrived because you were in the right place at the right time, with the right interior posture to receive it. No more fighting for what is yours. No more straining toward a result that belongs to your appointed season, but cannot be manufactured ahead of it. Your part is positioning. Your part is alignment. Your part is the daily practice, the open hand, the fragment honored, the space held open for the arrival, and the appointed moment will do what appointed moments do, which is arrive with a completeness and a specificity that no amount of striving could have produced. And that makes the years of waiting, in retrospect, feel not like wasted time, but like the most productive formation process your life has ever moved through. The 3 actions, then, are these. In relationships, stop managing departures and start making room for arrivals by showing up consistently in one open space. In purpose, identify the fragment that keeps returning and take one real movement toward it today. In resources and opportunity, practice open-handed receiving every day, combining committed aligned action with the release of forced outcome. These are not large actions. They are not dramatic overhauls of your entire life. They are the quiet, consistent, daily choices of a waymaker who knows they are at the threshold and is moving accordingly, not with the frantic energy of someone who has been waiting too long and is now trying to make up for lost time, with the grounded, steady, purposeful movement of someone who has been shaped by the wilderness into exactly the person needed for the appointed moment, and who is now simply walking in the direction that the formation has always been pointing toward. You have been prepared for this. The preparation was real. The shaping was real. The waymaker in you has always known how to find the path. And the path, right now, begins with these 3 simple actions taken in the 3 specific areas where your Kairos season is most actively moving. Begin today, not with everything, with one thing, the one thing that is most clearly visible from where you are standing. Take that one step, and trust that the next step will appear once you are standing on the one that is available to you right now. We are near the end of this message together, and I want to begin this final part by doing something that I have been building toward across all of the parts that came before it. Something that requires a different quality of presence than anything else in this message has required. I want to thank you, not in the ceremonial way that content creators thank their audiences as a kind of social courtesy that both parties understand is primarily functional. I mean something more specific than that, and more personal than that. I want to thank the part of you that showed up, because showing up was not guaranteed. You have been through enough in the season behind you that staying away from a message like this one would have been completely understandable. The part of you that has learned to protect itself from hope that costs more than it delivers had every reason to redirect you to something safer, something that asked less of your interior, something that did not require you to sit with the full weight of what the waiting has taken and what the promised shift might mean if it is real, and what it might cost you emotionally if it turns out not to be. That part of you had legitimate reasons to stay away, and it did not win today. The deeper part of you, the part that has never fully stopped believing, no matter how many times the believing was difficult, that part showed up. And I do not take that lightly. It takes something to show up when showing up has not always been rewarded with what you needed. It takes the specific kind of courage that does not look like courage from the outside, because it is quiet and private and does not announce itself, but that from the inside requires more than most people ever ask of themselves. Thank you for that courage. Thank you for the part of you that remained open enough to receive this message on this day. I also want you to know something that I mean with complete sincerity. You are not alone in this room. I know that the experience of listening to a message like this one can feel solitary, because it often happens in private moments, in the hours when the house is quiet or the commute creates a pocket of interior space that the rest of the day does not provide. And the solitary quality of the listening can reinforce the feeling that the season itself has been solitary, that the specific combination of struggle and faith and waiting and hope that you carry is something that belongs uniquely and uncomfortably to you. It does not. All across the world right now, in different time zones, in different languages, and different specific circumstances that share the same essential interior shape, other chosen ones are walking into this exact same message. Other waymakers are standing at their own thresholds. Other people who have been through their own versions of the pit and the wilderness and the long silence are hearing their names called for the first time in a long time by words that finally fit the reality of what they have been living. You are part of a company of people who are waking up in this season. Not all at once, not with fanfare or public announcement, but quietly and powerfully, and with the specific authority that comes from having been shaped through the kind of process that most people never volunteer for and could never fully understand from the outside. You are not alone. The room you are in is fuller than it appears, and every person in enlightenment arrived here by walking through their own version of exactly what you have walked through. Now I want to give you one final exercise before this message closes, and this one is specifically about what you are going to leave behind when you walk away from this moment. Because the threshold, the one I described in part 8, and that you have been standing on through everything in part 9, and now into this final part, the threshold is not only a place of receiving, it is also a place of releasing. And there is something you have been carrying that you were never supposed to bring with you into the next season. It has been useful, it has served a purpose, but its purpose is complete, and carrying it forward is going to make the crossing heavier than it needs to be. I want you to close your eyes for a moment if you are able to do so safely in your current environment. And I want you to imagine that you are holding something in your hands. It is heavy, heavier than it looks, because most of the weight is not physical but accumulated. The weight of years and disappointments and deferred hopes, and the quiet exhaustion of being strong for longer than strength felt available. It is the weight of the waiting itself, gathered into a shape you can hold and examine. And finally, in this moment, set down. Feel the weight of it in your hands. Do not rush past the feeling. Let it be as heavy as it actually is. Let yourself acknowledge, perhaps for the first time, without immediately pivoting to gratitude or perspective, or the reassurance that it was all for a reason. Let yourself acknowledge simply that it was heavy, that carrying it required something significant from you, that you carried it faithfully and at real personal cost, and that the carrying deserves to be honored before the setting down. And now, at the threshold where you are standing, I want you to imagine bending down and placing that weight on the ground. Not throwing it, not rejecting it, placing it with care, with the acknowledgement that it was real and that you carried it well, and that it belongs here, at this threshold, as a marker of everything the season was, and everything it cost you. You are not abandoning it. You are completing your stewardship of it. You carried it as far as it needed to go, and the next part of the journey has different requirements. The next part of the journey requires your hands to be free. Place it down, stand up straight, and feel what your body feels like when it is no longer carrying that particular weight. That feeling, even if it is subtle, even if it is only the beginning of a release that will take more time to fully integrate, that feeling is real. That is the feeling of a season completing itself. That is the feeling of a threshold being crossed, not in the future, but right now, in this moment, as you stand in this space between the message and whatever comes next. I want to say something now about the work of sharing and supporting content like this. And I want to say it in the most natural and honest way I know how to say it, without the awkward machinery of a standard call to action that interrupts the intimacy of what we have been building together in this message. If this message reached you today, if any part of it, name something that you have been carrying without language. If the Kairos concept, or the Kava image, or the Waymaker identity, or the 3 practical actions in the 3 areas gave you something real to hold on to as you move into the next hours of your life, I want to gently ask you to do something, not for me, for the next person, for the chosen one who is going to wake up tomorrow morning in the middle of their own waiting season, their own version of the wilderness, without anyone to name what they are experiencing. For the person who is going to open their phone or their laptop or sit in their car in a parking lot and need to find a message that speaks their interior reality out loud before they can go on. Like this video if it reached you. Share it if you know someone who needs to hear it, not because sharing is a social obligation, but because you know, in that place where you know things about people, that there is someone specific in your life who is in the middle of the season this message was made for. Subscribe to this channel if you want to keep receiving content that goes to this depth, content that not stay on the surface of spiritual language, but actually sits with the interior reality of what the chosen life costs and what it produces. And if you are moved to support this work financially, the giving link is in the description below. Every contribution, regardless of its size, is what makes it possible to keep creating content that reaches into the private hours of people's lives and offers them language for what they are carrying. Give if you are able, share if you feel led. And if neither of those is available to you today, simply take what this message gave you and walk with it into the rest of your day. That is enough. That is more than enough. I also want to mention something one final time, gently and without pressure, because some of you encountered it in part 4 of this message and have been sitting with it since then, turning it over in the interior of you. The genius wave. If it met you somewhere in the middle of this message and something in you recognized it as a yes, not as a purchase being promoted to you, but as a tool that belongs to this specific season of your life. If the science of the theta frequency and the 7, minute daily practice, and the story of what it has produced in people who are walking through seasons very similar to yours, if all of that landed in a place that felt like recognition rather than sales pitch, then it is waiting for you in the pinned comment below. The link is there. The 90-day guarantee is there, and the $39 access that is available today through that specific link is there. If it is a yes for you, honor the yes. If it is not yet a yes, that is completely valid. Everything in this message is available to you regardless of whether the genius wave is part of your next step or not. What I want most for you, more than any product or any subscription or any measurable form of engagement with this channel, is for you to walk away from this message differently than you walked into it, not dramatically differently, not with a sudden and complete transformation that resolves every outstanding question and makes the next steps blindingly obvious, but with one thing that was not fully available to you before you began listening. One shift in the interior, one reframing of the season that allows you to stand in it with a slightly different quality of steadiness. One name for what you have become through the process that you can return to when the Chronos hours get heavy and the Kairos reality feels distant again. You are a waymaker. You are at the threshold. Your hands are free. And the step forward is not something you have to manufacture. It is something you simply have to take. The season of waiting is behind you. The appointed moment is not ahead of you in some theoretical future. It is here, pressing against the membrane of your present with a force that your open hands are now positioned to receive. The braiding is complete. The rope is strong. And what it is about to hold is everything that was always meant to be yours. Go forward, not with the frantic energy of someone making up for lost time, with the grounded authority of someone who knows that the time was never lost. It was always being used, always being invested, always producing something that no amount of striving could have manufactured faster than the process required. Go forward, Waymaker. The path begins exactly where you are standing.